Thanks, Naz. Now back to our main story this morning. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is due to arrive in Israel later on a two-day trip to the region, where he'll meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and stress that Hamas's barbaric terrorism shouldn't be a catalyst for further escalation in the conflict in Gaza.
But tensions are rising in the Middle East, with protests erupting in cities across the region in response to a deadly blast at a hospital in Gaza on Monday. Well, joining us now is Middle East analyst and Israeli political commentator Eli Koaz. Eli, you were at home in Tel Aviv only 24 hours ago. You've now fled with your 3-month-old son. Can you tell us what the situation was in Tel Aviv before you left?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. The situation was scary. We had sirens. We woke up last Saturday to sirens. In the morning, we ran, took our 3-month-old baby to the bomb shelter, and that initial impact of one of the Hamas rockets actually landed about 200 meters from our apartment. So yeah, since then we've managed to get to a safer place, and we were, the lucky ones. I'm sure you saw the gruesome atrocities that Hamas committed on that day in southern Israel, and yeah, fortunate to be in a safe place now, but thoughts are obviously with everyone there.
Eli, thanks for making it talk today. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. It's easy, I think, when you're reporting on these things to just talk about facts in a sort of non-emotional and cold factual way. I'm sitting here as a father of nearly 6, listening to you say that a rocket landed 200 meters from your apartment and that led you to flee with your 12-week-old son. Put into words as a father, as a Jewish father, the fear, the horror at this escalation, what that does to you as a human being, really.
Well, I think it's not just me, for the entire country and also the entire Jewish people. I think it's been a very difficult, it's a very difficult time. And personally, lost friends, so I feel fortunate that my family is safe. I think mentally everybody is still dealing with this, and the country is very united, realizing that Hamas cannot be on our border. People that commit these heinous acts of murdering innocent children and women and live streaming it on their phones, that's not acceptable. And also, not only for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people too. If we want a better future, it can't be with Hamas as a governing body of an area that borders Israel, such as the Gaza Strip.
Eli, following the blast at the hospital just a couple of days ago, there's been an awful amount of misinformation online, not just on unverified social media sources, but on what are usually well-respected news outlets around the world. How has that affected you and people from Israel being unsure about what really happened or feeling as though they have to defend the actions of the IDF?
Right. It was incredibly bizarre because, 2 days ago, when this explosion occurred, almost immediately after the explosion, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, which is essentially Hamas, which people are forgetting to report, the same people that did those horrible acts and that horrible massacre on October 7th, those people reported instantly that 500 people were killed and that the hospital, in a direct Israeli airstrike on the hospital, and much of international media reported it as fact. And then after the IDF did investigate, as a army in a democratic country should, there's overwhelming evidence to show that it was a Islamic Jihad, another faction in Gaza, misfired rocket that landed in a adjacent parking lot to the hospital. Yes, inflicting some damage, but not nearly the damage of an Israeli airstrike. And that casualty number has not been verified by any sources. So I think there is an onus on international media to take with a grain of salt any information coming out of the Gaza Strip from Hamas. We've seen what Hamas are capable of, but I would not trust anything that they say. They're holding over 200 Israelis captive and foreign nationals as well. And these are barbaric murderers that should not be trusted.
Eli, we spoke to Sam Sokol, a journalist, an hour ago on the programme, and he said something that I wanted to put to you. He said that it feels different this time. We've been used to having Hamas on the border, but and we've learnt to live with that as a Jewish people. Yesterday, Biden arrived. Today, Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, arrives, and that shows, I think, I will say superpowers, but two of the biggest and most influential powers in the world are fully behind Israel. Do you think, does that impact well for the Israeli people? And secondly, very briefly, where do you see this going? Because one of the biggest problems, of course, is the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We all agree that Hamas should be exterminated, and I'm quite happy to use that word. But you would also, because many Jewish people have said it to us over the last 3 weeks, you would consider absolutely about the Gazan people who are, controlled by Hamas, who could lose their lives.
Yes. Well, on your first point, I think that the visit by President Biden and today by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, very important. And they show this stalwart support for Israel during this very, very challenging time. I think also their visits are connected to two other things. One is opening that humanitarian corridor, which I know that Israel has agreed to now work with Egypt and also other countries to get aid through the Rafah crossing in the south of the Gaza Strip. And the other, and this is also very important, is deterrence, to show that both the UK and the United States have Israel's back to try to, it's a message being sent to Iran and to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon to not test Israel on other fronts, because the US and the UK and other Western allies will have their back. So that's on that. On your second point, I think that in terms of what the long-term goal is here and the humanitarian, so Israel has done a lot, the IDF has done a lot to try to get Gazan residents moving south, to get out of that danger zone near Gaza City, Beit Hanun, Jabalia, in the north of the Gaza Strip. What has happened, though, is Hamas have actually blocked a lot of those exit routes. So it's created a situation where a lot of the Palestinian people are still stuck. I've heard that about 500,000 have been able to fled, but there's still 500,000 that are still in that area of danger, and they will be used as human shields. So it makes it incredibly challenging for the IDF, but this is warfare against the most brutal terrorists in the world. So that's unfortunately part of it. But Israelis are united, and we hope the goal of this is to obviously exterminate Hamas and make sure that there's a better future for both Israelis and Palestinians alike.
Thank you so much, Eli Kovac. Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you will join us again.